All these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
eager
bullseye
to
across
enter
the
long
trust.
trade.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Happy 4th of July for those of us in the US. Remember to not buy a bunch of plastic BS and leave it everywhere and throw your fat hot dogs on the ground and make your firework litter all over the beach and drink beer that tastes like water and just do good things. Don't drive. So Bitcoin on the weekly time frame. Again, I don't really look at the weekly charts until about Friday before I start paying attention to them because the candlestick shapes change so much. Whereas if you see the video yesterday, we have extremely weak candlesticks, and now you see them today, and they look just fine for follow-through. So each day obviously influences things, and once we get closer to the candlestick closing, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's when we can get a better idea of the likelihood of how it is going to end up closing. So sticking to the daily time frames, we're looking at follow-through. Bulls got another leg up today, and it happened at the exact same time as yesterday. So we have a new bull o'clock to be keeping an eye on, and nice follow-through, another higher low established. It's not the kind of support on the daily time frame that is a very clear consolidation period with multiple red days forming a higher low. They're just support levels being built on the way up. So would you say, do we have a higher low on the daily? For me and my style of trading, I would say no, we don't have a higher low on the daily, but we do have clear supports established. So here we had a bull move, this kind of pullback with two significant pullback days and a base of support being established, giving back multiple days of upside, that's a higher low. It's very clear that we changed momentum for a decent amount of time and formed that higher low. Here we've just been going red, green, very brief consolidation, and it's really only the switchover of the daily candlestick that's leading to this little higher low forming. Whereas if we look at the 4-hour time frame, higher lows are clearly being maintained. Base of support did hold. The bulls held that level of previous resistance, now support, and got some follow through. So that oversold bounce that was happening during the coverage in yesterday's video ended up being a really nice bullish entry opportunity. And I personally did not make that entry because I did not want to give up sleep to try and trade it. Obviously would have done well if that were the case, but we had a nice 4-hour inside bar break bullish on that bounce play out that happened at 64.99. And then next thing you know, we go up to 67.99 essentially, a nice $300 bull signal on that move. So look at this time and when this bull move happened, and there's some things that we can do. Again, I talked in the last video about comparing to previous action. What happened last time? What is it like this time? So here the move happened at 9:05, 9:10, actually 9:10 a.m. Eastern. And the last move that happened was at 9:10, 9:15 Eastern. So the differences that I look at, I go to the hourly time frame and look at these bull moves up, and I say, what does the volume look like? I say, all right, well, we have less volume this time around, and there's less follow-through. The bulls held up from that move originally significantly for over a half dozen hours, and here we are already pulling back with an upper wick. So I can clearly say that the original move up yesterday at the same time had more volume and held up better for the bulls than this current setup is. That being said, we have still maintained higher lows on the 4-hour time frame. It is still a very clear uptrend at this point, and we now have a very clear resistance level that I believe a lot of shorts and a lot of bulls are watching. So look at this top up here where we have topped out on the 4-hour time frame at 67.808, 67, or make that 68.29, 68, let's try that again. So 68.07, 68.29, 68.17, and just now 67.97. So essentially a quadruple top on the 4-hour time frame in the low 6800s, and that for me is very significant because that's the next level on the daily time frame. So if we get a clear break above that, there is no denying that the bulls have made a significant bounce. We will have a bullish reversal candlestick on the weekly and follow through if this bull break were to happen in the next 3 days before the candlestick on the weekly closes. That will be significant follow through. This will lead to shorts needing to cover, and this will lead to bulls looking longer term, in my opinion, for this move to play out, where we have the exponential moving averages trying to become support. They're looking for a bull cross. We have not seen a bull cross since the April move that did see continuation and follow through. So the bulls continue to give good signs with the higher lows and higher highs. There are clearly some bull pumps going on we'll see what happens tomorrow at 9:15 a.m. Eastern, and watching to see, can the bulls maintain these 4-hour higher lows? So as long as the bulls hold 64.11, they are in full control of this 4-hour time frame. So we can have the same kind of consolidation all overnight as long as the bulls keep the higher low and see another pump up for continuation. They're just fine and in control overall. So that's where we stand. The bull's still pleased. Daily time frame, nice move to the upside, and it's all about the 4-hour higher lows to keep the bulls in control. Short term, so let's look back at that oversold bounce that I passed up. I said one more leg down, I'll look to play it, and we didn't get that leg down. That ended up being the bottom, but we had a clear little higher low and higher high, but the most clear bull break occurred with this volume spike when we broke the top of the bounce at that point with significant follow through, and then from that point on, we held exponential moving averages and then saw even further follow through. So good sign for the bulls. It's just whether they can keep this up and how long they can keep this up, maintaining 4-hour higher lows. So Ethereum on the weekly time frame, again, there's that candlestick looking a lot better. Daily chart, support level established. Is it a higher low? In my definition, no, it's not a clear daily higher low established just yet. This is all still essentially the same bull move, and that's because the 4-hour trend has not been lost. So another 4-hour higher low, but the difference here is Ethereum and Litecoin and these other names compared to Bitcoin, they're in an equilibrium now on the 4-hour because they did not head to a higher high while Bitcoin clearly did. So again, that shows me the pump is likely originating in Bitcoin, leading it to further follow through, and these names are getting the bots and the algos to push the price up in correlation to Bitcoin, but not to the same degree because again, the buying pressure is in Bitcoin and not in these other coins. These other coins are really just the sideshow action currently going on those pumps. So I'm looking for a 4-hour higher low. If we pull back a little bit more and if we lose an hourly higher low, if we break this low of consolidation of 47.60, then we'll look for the potential of a pullback and a higher low forming. So if you are looking for longer term trades, you are waiting for tightening 4-hour equilibriums to break. With a bull break, if it gets nice and tight, we'll be looking for follow through up towards $500. And with a bear break, then we have further daily consolidation and the bears are back in full control for most time frames if that does play out, if we lose 4-hour support. So again, at this point, I only personally like cautious, bullish swing positions, cautious saying, you know, not going full positions, not risking my entire stack because I'm not too confident in the bulls just yet. But if you are bearish, it's a very clear top fishing plays to be looking at where you're looking for the lower highs to form and you exit if the lower highs do break. So we don't have that on Bitcoin unless you went short on the initial bull move, which a lot of people do, you know, short that 5-minute spike and then look for the fade that ends up following through. As long as you have your stop loss level set, that is safe, and you have to wait for a little bit of a pullback to see where to put your stop loss so you know where the top is for that move temporarily. So overall, bulls are, nobody's comfortable in our current standing, which is why I don't like any, you know, clear signals for swing trades in either direction. It's still a feel out phase right now where the bulls are trying to prove that they have follow through on a bounce on the weekly time frame, and the bears are trying to remain in control of the overall trend. And to go along with it, we don't have a ton of volume, so it's not a very clear pattern in terms of who is in control right now. So I'm remaining patient and cautious, and I know that the price isn't going to run away from me in either direction unless some kind of major news hits. So there's no rush at this point. We look at the daily time frame for Bitcoin, and yes, we're either going to see another leg up over the next couple of days into the weekend, and I would look for the price to head to 7,000 if we do break this low 6,800 range. But if that doesn't happen, again, there's no rush to do anything. And right now, I believe a lot of bears are looking at this low 6,800 resistance and are in positions or entering positions using that level as a potential stop loss. So Ethereum 4-hour equilibrium and the hourly uptrend, I wouldn't be watching any shorter time frames than that. If we hold the low of consolidation up to this point, the 4-hour time frame is not ready to consolidate, have to lose that level to look for the equilibrium to pull back and remain inside that equilibrium and look to get tighter. Litecoin's a very similar standing where the daily time frame, I take that back. We did not break to a higher high just yet. Well, actually, it's the same as Ethereum, so it is a similar standing. The equilibrium on the 4-hour time frame, we have our resistance at 90. We pulled back 83.51. Now we have a lower high at 89. And again, if we lose the hourly higher low pattern, which is down at 86.26 right now, then we look for 4-hour tightening consolidation and to remain in this tightening pattern. So that's where the setup is for Ethereum and Litecoin. BNB is different. So 4-hour, very clear, tight pattern, no rush to do anything, and could be waiting for Ethereum or Litecoin to break. If we get a bull break of these 4-hour equilibriums, that likely is going to mean that Bitcoin is heading up to test that 6,800. And if we break it, we will look for a decent follow through for the bulls of Ethereum and Litecoin from them breaking that 4-hour equilibrium bullish. BNB, We are close to breaking key support. This is the weekly time frame. Again, the 12-period exponential on the weekly has been holding for months and months at this point. So the daily time frame is coming right down to our double bottom support level that the bulls really want to maintain, and that level is currently at 1334. And our resistance, we have a couple. Our new resistance here is 1515, and our double top is up here in the 1730s, 1740s. So you can see the daily chart is clearly tightening. We're going to be looking for a break in the near future. Bears want to see a break of 1373. That's a potential signal for that's an early signal to go short. And that would be a trade where you're anticipating that a break of that level means a break of these supports are likely for continuation. More cautious bears would wait for the break of 1334 before entering. And bulls have to see a break of 1515 to be looking to follow through back up to recent resistance. So the only plays here are bottom fishing plays off of support for the bulls, bears entering on breaks of support, or otherwise patiently waiting while we're in this tightening range. So that's where we stand for the 4. Fairly simple in terms of which time frames to be watching. Ethereum and Litecoin on the 4-hour, Binance still on the daily time frame, clear support levels in sight right near those levels, and Bitcoin the 4-hour time frame trying to maintain higher lows. We could see this 4-hour chart with, sideways consolidation into tonight, into tomorrow morning, and tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., 9:15 a.m., we're going to have a lot of people watching to see, do we get another spike up to see continuation into this pattern? And that's going to be the most important one because this resistance is so close by and because all the bulls and bears short term are watching that level. So let's now look at a couple examples again of the alert system, again, still in beta, and then we'll get into the adventure time. So here's an example of another abnormal volume, and what the alerts are showing us that as market environments are changing, so are the most beneficial alerts. So when we were watching 4-hour oversold bounces, hit an RSI point in the mid-20s and consistently bounce time and time again, and that was our money play, big time V-shaped recoveries, that was when the oversold climax alerts were killing it. They were the best trade to be utilizing on these alert systems. This current environment is obviously not seeing oversold dumps to lead to bounces. We are seeing abnormal volume show up before we see bull moves show up. So again, volume precedes price. Here's an example where the abnormal volume shows up and that spike triggered it. And then we traded sideways for another few hours and then the bulls showed up again. So there is this volume action, and it happened yesterday as well, not necessarily on the spike itself, but before the spike happens, there is a volume spike. Because what happens is we see volatility, and then as the range of the volatility drops off, the volume average that we're seeing drops off as well. And then a spike like this or any little increase in activity, it's more sensitive to being alerted because the preceding action has been so slow. So once we start to see things churning and the bulls either loading up before the pump or a little bit of a battle between the bulls and the bears, that's when the abnormal volume gets signaled, and then the breaks have followed through with that. I believe this is the 3rd day in a row the abnormal volume has given a bit of an early signal. And here's an example where the 30-minute overbought climax signaled the top and getting towards some consolidation. And we've been seeing these moves. Again, we have to adjust the RSI levels, which we do manually on these alerts, and not just the RSI levels, but the input levels, depending on what the trading environment is. So when we saw the price get down to extreme RSI levels down in the teens, when we were used to, just the mid-20s previously, we adjusted things so that the settings would be, affecting that, or I should say reacting to that. And here's an instance where these bull spikes are leading to RSI levels that get so quickly overbought on, the 30-minute and the hourly time frame that we move up the criteria that it would take to trigger overbought signals, because we know these short-term pumps can get a lot of follow-through in the short term before they do their normal fade and healthy consolidation. So abnormal volume on the 15-minute time frame has been a good one for the past few days. But as soon as the market environment changes again and we have some more clarity in the short term as to whether the bulls have indeed changed the daily trend and they are going to see a bounce into the mid $7,000 range, or whether this is the bears coming back into control, once that gets more clear, we will then look at different alerts to be most useful in those different market environments. So just want to point out that it's something that's always adjusting, just like we are as traders. And this is why I don't believe bots are a great tool to have as a trader. They can help, but again, the market environment is changing so rapidly, we must be agile to be able to react to it and look for different signals. So adventure time. I was now heading to Vegas, and Vegas, man, I didn't stay in the fancy hotels. I was a minimalist on this road trip and eating cold soup out of cans in my Honda Civic, and just preserving money so I could, have capital to trade with. I had enough money where I could have lived or, experienced this road trip differently, but I wanted to see, how cheap can I do this for? And so I was staying, when I went to Vegas initially, stayed with my buddy eventually, but I stayed in a few really cheap hotels, and man, everything that's wrong with humanity is condensed into Las Vegas in some of these areas. And it's really sad, just these people with just their slot machines, and it's not all the glitz and glamour that you see on TV, aside from the main strip. But overall, it's a great spot to visit, not a great spot to live. And I, of course, was coming from the middle of nature and then being thrown into this whirlwind of, human consumerism and consumption and alcohol, and it was just a little overwhelming. But there's still spots around Vegas within 30-minute to 2-hour drive. This is Lake Mead, and again, you can just camp around it. Really cool spot, recreation area. People go, and there was one night here where there was a big old pack of coyotes that just were all around me. And if you've ever heard a pack of coyotes at night, it is eerie, and it sounded just like screaming children. So that was a very interesting night, just being, again, by myself in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't, fearful of coyotes at that point, but definitely, it chills your bones when you hear that yipping and yapping all around you. It feels like it's hundreds of them. Very interesting experience. And then this is another one. I believe this is, I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head now. Something Springs Recreation Area. More mountainous. Again, fairly close to Vegas. I just drove from Vegas to this spot to sleep outside still, because I was still in that mindset. First day on the road trip after 6-7 months that I slept without my tent. Of course, it snows on me, so it did get chilly at night, and ended up sleeping on a hill and had to sleep, pretty much against a tree because I couldn't find any flat land. But it was a nice dusting to wake up to in the morning. And again, you would think Vegas, you think it's the middle of the desert, nothing's out there, but this is very close to Vegas, and some pretty cool trees and scenery and rocks and formations and all that. It's everywhere across the country. You can find it. You just have to be looking for it and know which sites to utilize. So these are areas, again, just hiking, and this is what I did when I first got back into civilization. Hemp ales is about to be a big thing these days, with hemp federally about to be legalized in the U.S. Big fan of stout and brown ales and darker beers. Got fairly into some sour ales recently, but this was a big time bonus after traveling. I can't tell you, even just, a shower. That's what I love about traveling so much when you take the minimalist route, is a clean glass of water or a shower is so much more appreciated after you've gone without it for so long. So if you go without a shower for a week, standing under that water, my mind was blown. Just like, here I am pushing buttons and getting hot water, where this was reserved for royalty back, for the majority of civilization. Royalty would get hot water, and here I am pushing a button and getting it on demand. It was pretty wild to experience it. Really, I mean, all the luxuries we have in our lives that we become accustomed to and take for granted, take those away for a while, and you certainly begin to appreciate them again. And beer was definitely one of those as well. So from there, we went to Yosemite, and I just did the Yosemite video from the summer. This is in the winter, so I went with my buddy from Vegas to Yosemite. It's fairly close, maybe 2.5 hours as well. Bunch of deer just hanging around, and this night ended up being a 12-degree night. That is the coldest I've ever camped, and I will never camp that cold again. And so for you Canadians and the rest of the world that does things the more logical way for temperatures, let's see, 0 would be 32 degrees, so below 0 Celsius, and very, very cold. I was wearing at least, as many layers as you can physically fit on, probably 6 to 8 layers, and tons of blankets and sleeping bags, and still it was a brutally cold night. But nice to see the park from a different standpoint, just in the winter with the snow. And then I went through Texas, and heading back to the East Coast, I did a lot less in terms of, long. I was pretty much just heading home at that point. So stayed in state parks still. These are Texas state parks, and just stayed briefly for a night, and then would move on to the next spot. Here's a spot in Mississippi. I'm getting closer to the East Coast. Went through New Orleans. And that was pretty much wrapping up the road trip. Then I actually donated my stallion to the Humane Society when I was done with it. And that was the end of that chapter. So from there, there's still more stuff to talk about in Adventure Time. And this was probably now ending up 4 years ago. So lots of stuff in between. We'll get to that later on. I hope you all have a good, fun, safe, happy day. And we'll check back in to see if this 4-hour pattern continues. Healthy consolidation, maintain a higher low, and then we'll see if tomorrow morning we get another spike leading to continuation. That's what a lot of people are going to be watching for, and a lot of people are watching the low 6,800 resistance level. Thanks again. See you soon. I also just put out a video comparing technical analysis to poker. That's on the YouTube channel. Check that out as well.